Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. It's, as we say at Pandora, everyone's a listener, so we always take any opportunity that we can to get out and talk to people about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how it all works, basically. Really, around video killed the radio star or did it? It's really a lesson around disruption. And, as technology evolves, as people change the way that they consume content and information, the landscape is always ripe for disruption. And in fact, it turns out that I made a career out of disrupting, which my mother was very happy about, having spent that money to send me to school. And every year my school report would come home and it would say, Jane's a dreadful disruptor in the classroom. She's really got to stop distracting people and she's got to get her head down and do the job. I started my career very early on in Microsoft in 1989, in fact. When there were only 20 people here in Australia for Microsoft. I stayed there for 16 years. And that was an amazing ride of disruption. At that time, it was the first time that Bill Gates had coined the phrase, a PC on every desktop and in every home. And it was sort of unthinkable back then that that's what would happen. And even now, looking around the room, they're not just in homes and in offices, they're with us everywhere we go. And today that's really in the form of a smartphone. I spent some time at Vodafone, and at the time that I was there, we were really all about disrupting the landline. That was the very early days of mobile, and in fact, the very early days of cap plans, which really paved the way for the affordability of mobile technology and the same technology, again, that we carry around today. I spent the last 6 years at Fairfax, where I was the CEO of the Fairfax Digital Business Unit. And of course, in a classic sense of disruption, that was around newspapers and really finding a new way to move forward and give people information and entertainment to allow them to consume it that they want to. And so having made a career out of disruption, I find myself at Pandora. And Pandora is really about disruption again. It's really all about redefining radio. I don't think that video ever killed the radio star. I don't think that a lot of disruption completely kills the technology before it. But what it does do is it really paves the way for incumbent organisations to step up and to really start listening to what it is that people want to do, to watch how people want to consume information, and then to try to be the very best of breed at delivering the content that they want to consume the way that they want to consume it. And so that really speaks to what our mission is at Pandora, which is about redefining radio, but it's also about allowing people to listen to the music that they love. And I think just to start today, there's some words here from our founder that I'd like to share with you.
This is a story about the power of music. About the single-minded and relentless pursuit to fully unleash its great potential. And a commitment to the effortless and endless exchange between artists and their audiences. Where artists can be heard and everyone can hear what moves them. Simply and without judgment. To us, music is more than an industry. It's a language that speaks to and is spoken by all. Let there be music.
So I guess our mission is really all about two things. It's about not only giving people music that they love, allowing people to listen to music that they love, but it's also about making sure that we have a platform for musicians and artists from all around the world to be able to be heard, regardless of whether or not they're signed with big music labels, regardless of whether or not they have the ability to be played on terrestrial radio or cut CDs. That's the dual mission of the company of Pandora, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But we also have another thing that we say at Pandora, and it really talks to, I guess, one of the reasons why I took the job there. I'd left Fairfax at the end of last year and was kind of looking around for my next opportunity, and I realised that what I wanted to do was work for a digital pure play. Working in two-speed businesses is actually really kind of exhausting, so I just wanted to work in an organisation that was purely all about reaching people through digital means. And this opportunity came up, and I thought, I'm not a musician, I don't have an extensive music collection. I'm not really all about music. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life. I don't really have a lot of time to be involved in music. Am I a bit of a fraud, going for this role? Should it really be somebody that's deeply passionate about music and knows everything and goes out to bands and bars and is really involved in the scene? And then I started to think about what music actually really did mean to me. And little kind of snapshots of previous parts of my life started coming back to me. And it really sort of made me think about how integral music is to kind of everything we do, from when we're very, very young to those of us who are rediscovering or listening to music again for the first time in 25 years. It's funny, I remember the first song that was playing when I kissed the first boy I ever kissed. I can't remember his name, but I can remember the song that was playing, which was Love Cats by The Cure. I've now got a Love Cats station on Pandora. I can remember the songs that were sung to me as a child. I can remember endless 5.5, 6 hour car trips 4 times a year to Dubbo, where I was born, where my father only had 2 CDs. He had Neil Sedaka and he had Neil Diamond. And every single one of those songs is burned, imprinted into my brain. And I can invoke the feeling of car sickness just by hearing Calendar Girl. And I started to think about, music is actually really deeply embedded in all of us. And what it takes is the time and the space to kind of rediscover the music that we love, or discover music that we didn't know we loved, which is really what the essence of Pandora is. A little bit about the company in the US. It's funny because, I say to people, I've got this new job, and they're like, oh, what's that job? I'm working for Pandora. And people look at me and they go, really? The jewellery company? Oh, we didn't see that coming, Jane. And then they start looking at me for the beads and the bracelets, and I swear my mother is still waiting for me to buy her a Pandora bracelet. I can't quite break the news to her. So Pandora here is not as well known as Pandora in the US, but obviously my role is to make that change. So in the US, we're a company of a significant size, and there's some numbers there behind me. The thing that I think really came home to me was when I flew over to Pandora. The week after I got the job, I flew over to San Francisco for the training. And between the time of booking and traveling to the US, I had changed passports. So, of course, when I get to the airport in the US, I'm pretty much arrested, pushed aside in the queue where the 400 eyes of the queue are upon you, sitting in the corner and thinking, oh, what's going on? And then it occurred to me that I'd changed my passport. So eventually I get called up to the armed officer standing at the gate to America. And he looked over his cubicle and he said to me, and what are you doing here? I said, oh, no, I'm here for business. And he said, well, who do you work for? And I said, I work for Pandora. And he said, really? Get out. I've got to let you in or you'll muck with my radio stations. And I said, yeah, Bubba, I'm totally going to muck with your radio stations. And the kind of reception you get in America is that Pandora is actually a household name. We're now north of 230 million registered users. 1 in 3 smartphones has accessed Pandora in the last 30 days. On any given day, and right now, there's more people in the US than equal the population of Australia and New Zealand listening to Pandora right now. And so it's kind of a big deal in America, and it's really, I think the best job of my life is the opportunity to bring Pandora to people in Australia and New Zealand. So I started this business here in my living room in November of last year. or Pandora International Headquarters, we like to refer to the spare room in our house as. And it was pretty much me, an iPad and 2 pairs of shoes, and started to go out and spread the word about Pandora. And it's really started to spread far and wide. And, you know, we have a real focus on the listeners, the people that download and use our product. One of the things that I do every day, first thing in the morning, is I do the listener support for Pandora for Australia and New Zealand. It's something our founder, Tim, still does in the US every day. We spend some time looking at what the listeners are saying and the feedback that they're giving us. And very early on, even sitting at home, you know, in a pair of tracksuit pants, I would start to get emails far and wide from across Australia, from people working in the mines in Western Australia who would say to me, I'd like to thank you for bringing me the music that my family loves while I'm so far away from home. From really remote parts of Victoria, you know, regional Victoria, where I get a mail from a 70-year-old saying, you know, my grandson came to see me on the weekend, he put this on my phone, and I have been listening to the music from my youth, and I just wanted to write to say thank you. And these amazing emails of, you know, Pandora in the labour room and Pandora, recovering from chronic pain. And people send me photos of themselves standing in a town in Scotland that shares the same last name as them. And I respond, fantastic photo, thanks for sharing. Can we send you a T-shirt? We really, really have a laser-like focus on the listeners that we have at Pandora, because it's thanks to those listeners that Pandora is now starting to spread. So right now in Australia and New Zealand, we're getting a registered user of Pandora every 30 seconds. And again, I kind of look at this journey that we're on, and I'm so thankful that the product that we have is intensely personal, and it does exactly what it says it's going to do. For those of you who haven't used Pandora, we're using the Play to Lead polls today. If you want to go to the bit.ly/DiG festival link, there's a couple of questions there if you want to kind of participate early on in the presentation, and then one more at the end to see if I can kind of convince you to give Pandora a go. The way that Pandora works is that you download it to your phone or you log in from your desktop. About 85, nearly 90% of the users of Pandora in Australia and New Zealand are actually listening on their mobile device. So the smartphone and the tablet has really revolutionised the way that people enjoy listening to music, either music that they own or music that they're streaming. And it really made a big difference to the way Pandora runs its business. So we kind of waited here in Australia until we had the apps available in the Google Store and Apple Store to make sure that we could start out as a really mobile product in this part of the world. You give Pandora the name of one song, one artist, or one genre that you love. So it might be the song that you kissed your first boy to, or it might be, you know, a song from your youth. I presented to a group of, you know, pretty senior citizens the other day, and we started a Glenn Miller orchestra station, and they were just absolutely loving that. Or it might be something from today's hits. It might be somebody really popular or somebody really obscure. But you start with that one seed. And then what happens is we look at the fingerprint, the DNA of that piece of music, and we start to stream more music to you that is just like that one. And then you refine the music by using the thumbs up and the thumbs down. Yep, we got that song right. I want more of it. No, you didn't get that song right. Make that go off my station, and then start to refine that taste right down to just playing the music that I love. What we find with Pandora, and there's a lot of talk right now around music streaming, and there's a lot of companies that are doing that. The way that we talk about Pandora is it's really about the passive listening experience. People listen to music in two ways. There's passive listening and active listening. And we listen to music passively actually about 80% of the time. So, you know, that's where music is just playing around you. And it's traditionally been the domain of terrestrial radio, or the radio that we all know and love from growing up. It's where you're in the car and listening to music. You might be in a bar or a hairdresser or a cafe. You might be at home. You might be at work. You're actually doing something else, but you are listening to music at the same time. And when you think about it, we listen passively most of the time. Pandora really belongs in that passive listening segment of listening. The rest of the time we call active listening. It's about 20% of the time. And it's where you are more leaning forward and engaging with the music that you want to hear. It's where a lot of the on-demand players like Spotify or iTunes or Audio, Deezer, Mog, there's a lot of them around that participate in that active listening environment. It's where you lean forward, I want to listen to this band, this album, this song, this playlist. You are actively engaging with the music that you want to listen to. It's actually really complementary. We find most people listen to music passively, but also have a desire to listen to music actively on demand, telling the service what you want to play. So really, Pandora is something that you listen to when you're doing something else. It's the music that just becomes the soundtrack of what you're doing through your day, particularly as we see more and more people moving into open plan offices. A lot of us spend a lot of time in our car commuting to and from work, in the train, in the bus, while you're at home, bathing the kids, cooking the dinner. Music is just playing around us. And I was talking to some people before, Lynn, around having a Sonos in your home or a system in your home that plays music for you and really enjoying listening to music you love without having to engage actively in it. So Pandora really fits into that 80% of the way people consume music. You just give it the name of one song you love, and that's the music we play for you. So how does it work? Pandora is actually 13 years old. So as a company, it kind of predates Facebook, Twitter, even Google. It's amazing to think that this organization has been around for that long. In the year 2000, our founder, Tim Westergren, himself a composer and musician, figured that there was going to be a better way to start recommending music to people. And with a small group of people, he formed a company called Savage Beast. And they began on this project called the Music Genome Project. They were scientists, they were musicians, they were mathematicians, and what they discovered is that every single piece of music, regardless of whether it's rock and roll or hip hop or classical or a jingle, every piece of music contains 450 unique attributes. And they defined and named those attributes. When we put music into the genome, the first thing that happens is that a musical analyst, a human being, actually listens to the music. They tag the music with the attributes, one of 450 attributes, and they ingest it. They put it into the music genome where it sits alongside of all of the other tagged pieces of music. There are over about 1.3 million pieces of music curated into the genome collection now. Just a little bit of information about that. 70% of the music in Pandora is from independent musicians. So whilst you'll hear all of the popular stuff that you want to hear, there's a real focus on making sure that we put music into the genome that it's likely you've never heard before. And the reason for that is about the magic that is Pandora. So whilst you might start one of your stations from a popular seed, within about 4 or 5 songs, we're going to start playing you music that you've never heard before. And I watch people do this. And they're sitting there and they're listening to the music, and then you can, this is a great song. I kind of love this song. Who is this? And then they pick up their phone or look at their screen and you think, God, I've never heard of them. I've just discovered a new piece of music. And there's something in all of us as humans that makes us want to share something that we have discovered. I found this great restaurant. I found this awesome place to get shoes at half price. I found this great thing, and it makes you want to tell people about this discovery that you have made. And so it's that element of discovery in Pandora that makes it incredibly viral, and that's really powered by the independent musicians that are part of the platform. About 95% of the collection spins at least once a month. The music in Pandora is heard. It's heard by audiences at scale, but it's also heard because Pandora really helps people to broaden their musical taste. I talk to a lot of people, like a lot of mums right now who are just ripping their hair out about having to listen to One Direction CD on high rotation in the car as they drive their kids to school or wherever. And I talk to them about, well, you know what, you can put One Direction in Pandora. Yep, we'll play you a One Direction song, but within a little while, we're going to start serving the kids in your back seat music that they've never heard that sounds just like that One Direction song that they love, and before you know it, peace will reign in that car. So it turns out, for example, some of the collection of One Direction actually shares very similar musical DNA to the early Beatles. And so whilst you start off with a One Direction song, you're driving along and halfway to work, up comes Beatles. Mum's happy in the front, kids are happy in the back. They're listening to the music that they love without knowing why they love it. Because sometimes it's not about the artist, it's about the soul of the music itself. And so, you know, I like to think that Pandora kind of solves a lot of arguments in that respect, but it also really helps to broaden the taste around what it is that you're listening to. I've got a theory with my own kids. I was talking to some people out before. I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old girl. 3-year-old wakes up cranky every day. Why? This child has like the world's best life, right? And she gets up and she's cranky, and I've got this theory, if you've got young children at home, please try this and let me know if it works. Turns out all kids love reggae. So we put reggae on in the morning in our house, and the little Buffalo Soldier comes down the hall, cranky as all hell when she gets up, and it's just a way for us to ease into our day. And it just talks to where music is around us. We lost the internet at home, oh my God, for 2 hours. Not long ago, and my 6-year-old said to me, "Mummy, what did we do before we played music?" And I remember saying that to my mum, but it was about the TV. What did we do before TV? It's kind of scary how it's all evolving, but the music genome is really the beating heart of the way that Pandora works. And I thought that I would give you some examples of popular songs, what we hear, what we remember, but then what it is that a music analyst hears.
Good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe there never was.
I can't believe I was the only one that had that karaoke moment there in Neil Diamond. Have none of you done that? Okay, whatever. What I hear with Neil Diamond is somewhere between Lithgow and Bathurst. This was on high rotation in my father's car on the way to Dubbo. What we hear and what we remember about that song invokes entirely different things from the music analysts that are analysing that particular song. You can see here that we've pulled out some of the traits from Sweet Caroline. So when they listen to this music, they then tag those attributes in. And when you're looking at Pandora, particularly on a PC where you've got the biggest screen, you can actually go into a lot of detail around what the attributes are, what they mean, what other songs and music they're like. Let's have a look at another more recent one.
Raise the bar and a ghost to the stars. She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night for good fun. I'm up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to the sun. We're up all night to get some.
One of my favourite songs right now, thank God for that, because it makes me realise that it's not just the really old stuff that I know and love. I do have some current musical taste. And once again, it doesn't matter what the song is, who it's by, where it's from, how popular it is in trending, how much investment the music labels have made in Pandora. It really represents a true democracy of music selection. So what we see is that all of those artists that you've never heard before get surfaced. If you're a small musician from a garage band in Newcastle, and God knows there's been a few of them, and you have songs that share the same musical attributes as some of the more popular ones, we will spin you. We have over 1,000 artists from Australia and New Zealand in the genome right now, and we add more every week. I usually tweet about what we're adding. We tweet on Pandora AUS. We put it on our Facebook page so you can see the types of music that we're adding. The way that music gets into the genome is a few ways. From the major labels, obviously, from the independent labels. Artists can submit music themselves. We also use algorithmic radars to listen in the countries that we operate in, listen on Twitter, listen on Facebook, listen on search, listen on Wiki. We listen out for what's trending and what's popular, and we go and acquire that music and put it in the genome. And finally, from missed searches. So people start looking for music and we don't have it. We go and get that music and we put it in the genome. We are licensed to operate that music in Australia and New Zealand under license from APRA AMCOS and PPNZ. We pay two kinds of copyright on every song we spin. We pay a copyright fee to the recording artist and a copyright fee to the person that wrote that music in the first place. We pay those fees to the collecting authorities and they distribute the money to the musicians and artists themselves. That way of licensing means it's very difficult for Pandora to expand globally. We're working on it. But we were lucky enough in Australia and New Zealand to gain these licenses early last year, or late last year, I should say. And that's why we operate in Australia and New Zealand. When we play music, we pay for music. And it's all part of the way that the genome and the product itself operates. We talked a little bit about this. The way that we're growing, and again, we're 5 now. I mean, the team's expanded enormously since I started. We moved out of my living room and we're now in Surrey Hills. There are 5 of us. I've actually just started a person in New Zealand this week. We've got another one coming in November. We'll close the year out at about 8 people here. And we just sit there and we work on this product and we work with people every single day to spread the message about Pandora. On average, one person who registers, downloads and uses Pandora will recruit 8 others for us. And we find, again, that when we can get into the ears and the psyche of people who are listening, they do, I call it the great Amway of radio apps, right? They do the recruiting for us. And there are 2 reasons that that happens. And to me, it's still incredible with some of the mails that I receive. People tell other people about it because it's personal. Pandora plays the music I love. And it's not about whether or not I'm cool or not cool or embarrassed about my tastes or not. It's about me. Pandora plays the music I love. Pandora will play the music you love. And again, that element of discovery, when people discover something new and that feeling inside of all of us that makes us want to share, when we find something that we really enjoy, it really makes us want to share it with the people that we know. So we're not a company that does any above-the-line advertising. You know, we never have been. We really rely on people to talk to other people about what they're doing with Pandora. And so what we see now, and in Australia this is also very true, we see people integrating Pandora into the way that they live their lives every day. So members recruiting other members is one way of growing Pandora, but the other way of growing Pandora is to really be where people want to listen to music. You know, there's an extraordinary number of people now, myself included, who use the iPhone as an alarm clock in the morning to wake them up. And, you know, there are days that I kind of pick up my phone before I greet my husband. You know, I'm not embarrassed about that at all. You know, in the car, you know, as you're traveling to work, on the smartphone while you're in the train, on the PC with headphones, particularly in the explosion of open plan offices. Anywhere that you want to be at home, in your sound systems, in your TVs, in your Blu-ray players, in your set-top boxes. Pandora is now embedded on over 1,000 consumer electronic devices in the US, including a jacuzzi and a fridge. And when you think about it, when you're in those environments where there's a jacuzzi or a fridge, that is a place where you might passively be listening to music. So these partnerships also really help Pandora to grow, and we're replicating those partnerships here. I was absolutely thrilled about, I don't know, maybe 2 months after I'd started at Pandora, and I was sitting at home one night on the lounge with my husband eating dinner. It was pretty late. We were watching, you know, a popular show. I think it was MasterChef or something that we'd recorded on I had recorded. He would rather eat his arm off than eat that. I had recorded on Fox IQ earlier on in the day. I was sitting there and I've got the bolognese on my lap and up comes an ad and it's for Holden. And the screenshot in that ad is a screenshot of Pandora on board in the car in Australia. So I jump up off the lounge, forgetting that there is a large plate of spaghetti bolognese sitting on my lap. It's gone everywhere and I just couldn't believe it. And I said to my husband, "Did you see that? Did you see that? That was Pandora." And we replayed that ad about 8 or 9 times. It's the partners that also help to spread the word about Pandora around. And I will never forget that moment where I saw it on my TV in my living room only 2 months after I'd started. Holden were a great partner very early on. 70% of all new Holdens will come with Pandora on board by the end of this year. Mazda have signed on and announced. Ford have signed on and announced. We have 20 manufacturers in the US and we'll be announcing the next couple of majors here in the next few months. When you think about it, about 60% of that passive listening is actually done in a car. So the car partners are really important to us, as are the other partners that you see here, whether it be partners in the living room on gaming, consoles, set-top boxes, on TVs themselves, or partners outside of the house. And there's been a lot of support for us doing that. So much support, in fact, I talked a little bit about, the Holden ad and my experience here. Most of the manufacturers in the US now showcase Pandora in their advertising. So here's an example of one of those.
Hey, Eddie, where's she going now?
Looks like the dry cleaner.
Dry cleaner. The dry cleaner.
The all-new Buick Veron gives you Pandora music streaming.
You guys are on.
It started with a whisper.
Unexpected technology that lets your favorite music go wherever you go.
I can't believe she's listening to that noise.
It's interesting in cars. Of course, when we buy a car now, we kind of expect it to be safe. We expect it to have fuel economy. And so one of the battlegrounds for cars and advertising, of course, is around entertainment, what you do when you're inside of that car. And it's exciting that Pandora can be around at a time where the battle for the interior of the car is really about the music that you love. It's such a great fit. I kind of wanted to end there and just see if you have any questions. I think it's a great opportunity to get out and talk to people about who we are and what we do and how it all works. And as I said earlier, we kind of take any opportunity to get out and talk to people who may one day become listeners of Pandora. And again, I urge you to have a look at the Play to Lead polls again after the presentation and, let there be music, as we say, let there be listeners. So thank you for your time.